How's it going, everybody? My name is Aaron Hilliard. Welcome to Mushroom Wonderland. I'm the vice president of the Kitsap Peninsula Mycological Society. I've been a mushroom geek my whole life, and what I do on this channel is I go out into the woods and discover what kind of wild mushrooms are growing out here. We're in the beautiful conifer forest of the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, and there's wild mushrooms growing right now. Come with me and my dog Gunnar on this episode of Mushroom Wonderland.
Welcome to Mushroom Wonderland.
Look right here alongside the trail, beautiful. It's got these white speckles on top of the cap. Kind of looks like the Morel mushroom, but this one's more brownish colored, even though this one's kind of a light brown. This is in the genus Amanita, so it's related to the Morel mushroom, the Amanita muscaria, but this one, Amanita pantherinoides, here in the Pacific Northwest. Beautiful little mushroom. It's got these white veil remnants on top of it. That's what those little white patches are. But this one's gonna have a ring around the stem right there. And it's called the partial veil. That protects the gills till the spores are ready. And those white remnants are actually part of what's called the universal veil. So amanitas grow out of what's kind of like an egg. We call it the vulva. And then as its cap opens up, the little veil remnants are stuck all over the top. So here's a couple more. These ones are really kind of iconic looking with these white speckles. And then you can see this kind of frosted look in the dirt around it. Those are actually the spores. The spores dropped and they're white colored. They kind of make the needle duff around it look gray. So beautiful examples of Amanita pantherinoides. There's another one here getting kind of dried out from this heat. There's a way to detoxify them, but I'm going to leave them alone. But this is a good example of spores. There's just millions of spores just in this little area, and that's not counting all of the millions that have, blown off into the wind and have landed on everything else. So each mushroom can produce just millions and millions of spores, and they come out of these gills. This is what a dried out one looks like. The gills start to get real ruffly looking. Bugs are eating it and stuff. But just because bugs eat a mushroom doesn't mean that it's particularly safe for humans to eat. But a nice little cluster of Amanita pantherinoides growing here in western Washington. Nice. Look at that. Beavers out here and they're busy making dams out here. A lot of people will insist that you got to get way off the beaten path to find mushrooms, but I can assure you that just right alongside of the trail, you can find a lot of mushrooms growing. It's weird. It's as if they like the disturbance and the human activity. Their spores can catch a ride on our pant legs and stuff, and they just like the disturbance. A lot of mushrooms will grow just along the trail side. So walking along the trail, you can see mushrooms just real easy to find. Look at there, another pantherinoides. So if you know a good conifer forest with some nice dirt trails like this one, just go for a walk and you'll find a lot of these same kind of mushrooms if you're in this part of the world. Now, a lot of these mushrooms will show up in other areas of the world, but mushrooms are somewhat regional. So I'm here in western Washington in the Puget Sound Basin. I'm on the Kitsap Peninsula, right about sea level. What's growing here is not necessarily growing in your neck of the woods, like if you live in New England or down in Florida or somewhere like that. I was just in California. There is like nothing growing down there where I was in LA, except for some little lawn mushrooms and stuff. So I am lucky to live in an area that has such fungal diversity, and these big coniferous forests really kind of help to retain moisture down here in the under canopy with the with the shadiness, but you don't have to deviate, you know, and go acres off the beaten path. You can find plenty of mushrooms just growing alongside the trail if you want to discover mushrooms. Oh, look on my shirt, Amanita muscaria. These ones closely related. Let me show you. Amanita pantherinoides, Amanita muscaria. Look at that. See the good in all things, you know, even Amanita pantherinoides. No distinct smell, white gills. This is a good example. Look at the vulva on that. It's coming out of this cup-like thing. So when it broke out of this little like egg-looking deal, it left those little speckles on top. So, pretty cool. Look at these crazy devil's clubs here. These things, you don't want to tussle with those. Devil's club, very crazy thorniness, and they will stick you. But this is a good type of area to be looking for mushrooms. I can use these big logs to traverse over the crazy landscape here. But I'm interested in what I'm seeing growing over here in the swampy area on these trees. If you can see at the base of this, I'm seeing some mushrooms. So I'm gonna try to get over there so we can get a closer look. Beautiful, Pleurotus. Probably Pleurotus PNW species number 7. The oyster mushroom is what this is commonly known as. They're growing out here big time right now. Look, you can see this. The gills come pretty much all the way down here. There's not really a pronounced stipe. This is a thick boy. Real thick, kind of like a button mushroom or something. Look, they're growing here off of this. And so these dead alders, look at, here's some young ones popping out of the side of the tree. Again, over there, real fresh young ones. Oh, beautiful fruiting of them right there. So these are oyster mushrooms, just like you find in a grocery store or something. These ones would be kind of challenging to get because they're in the swamp. Hey, Gunnar, grab those for me. Oh, we got a woodpecker. Oh, we got woodpeckers right on this particular tree. Wild. Check this out. Oh, there's a woodpecker right there. This tree is also what we would call a widowmaker because it's just a dead alder. So a really soft hardwood. And Pleurotus, these oyster mushrooms really love this kind of wood to grow on. So Pleurotus ostreatus, common name for kind of the gray or blue looking ones, but these ones are more white, kind of a yellowish tinge as they get older. But I could take this, collect some spores, and just start growing this at home. You know, wild mushrooms are not that much different from the oysters you're going to find in the grocery store. They're all cultured from mushrooms that are growing in the wild. So these ones, Pleurotus, they do attract a lot of flies, which, you know, if you're not too squeamish, no big deal. And these ones are relatively young and thick and beautiful. So oyster mushroom's a delicious edible wild mushroom. Pleurotus pulmonarius looks a lot like this, known as the oyster mushroom. Really delicious wild edibles growing right now in the spring. It's been warm, it's been wet, and those are the things that they love. And they love this hardwood environment. So that tree over there has got some really nice fruitings of it. That cluster right there would be really nice to get into the basket. Just depends on how far you want to go for them. You want to walk into the swamp, then they're yours for the picking. If you can't reach them up there on a tree, you could just take one of these branches like this one, tape your pocket knife onto it, and just saw that cluster off the tree and try to catch it when it comes down, and you have some good oyster mushrooms to eat. So cool. I'm actually going to collect a couple of these and put them in my pack, and we're going to get a culture of the wild white oyster mushroom that grows here and see if we can grow some of these on hard wood pellets. So I take oak pellets and I soak them, and then you can get this to grow right on the wood pellets that you'd use in a Traeger grill or something. It's a beautiful chonky one. Be nice to be able to just grow these at home. So yeah, I'm gonna harvest some of these. And cool find, Pleurotus, the oyster mushroom. So I notice on this stick right by all these oyster mushrooms that are growing right here, we have other mushrooms growing all over these other dead branches. So I'll pick this guy off to show you. It's really dried out, but this one has a pore surface underneath. So you can see little tiny holes. Those are pores from which spores fall out of, and you can see these concentric rings of different colors and these little shelf mushrooms. This is turkey tail. So the same turkey tail that are, you know, in capsules and stuff. Really medicinal mushroom, most highly studied mushroom in the world for medicinal benefits. And the one way you can tell is these concentric rings growing on hardwood mainly, although I have seen and heard of them growing on softwood like conifer trees. But it's always going to have the pore surface underneath. That's where the spores come from. So this one, pretty dry. But you could collect these, make a tea or a tincture. And Trametes versicolor, the turkey tail mushroom, growing right next to all of these oyster mushrooms. So right here in this swampland, man, they really, the mushrooms like it because all the wood just soaks up a lot of water. Very nice. All right, let's get moving. I'm not gonna keep that. These are really common. You can find these all over the place. Where do we go, Gunnar? Dang, these clusters of oysters are gonna haunt my dreams, especially that one up there. It's all good. There's a lot around, so back to the forest. Wow, here's a stick with some cool mushrooms on it. So check these mushrooms out growing here on the stick. They've made it into other videos. This one's Kitsap Batius, or the Royoporus Batius, the black-footed polypore. So these like growing off of wood. They don't have gills underneath. They got little pores, very leathery kind of mushrooms. These can grow for months. So these are a white rot decayer on little twigs like this. And the Kitsap Batius, really common this time of year and can grow for months. So this one not really useful to humans, considered inedible, but you know, it's got its place out here in ecology. And kind of funnel shaped, darker in the center and then getting lighter out towards the edge, and very leathery. So this one has pores on it. That's why they call it a polypore. You can see this is where the spores come out of, is these little tiny holes. See that? You know, each mushroom is like a little ecosystem too, but don't worry, I'm not disturbing too much. This happens in nature. Deer kick them over, wind, all kinds of natural forces. Humans are natural too, if you think about it. You know, we're meant to be here. We're meant to be curious and looking at things. So I'm actually doing this a service. I'm going to repeat that over and over and over. About picking these mushrooms, I'm kicking spores all over the place. So the Kitsap Batius, or Royoporus Batius, cool little mushroom. So I tell you what, we had a pretty bogus fall last fall as far as the mushroom season goes. And then this spring has been pretty good, but it's like almost already over. So super bummed out. But there are still mushrooms that are going to be growing in these micro habitats, really moist areas, all the way throughout summer. And in June is the earliest I've ever seen here in the, Puget Sound Basin, where I've started to see golden chanterelles popping out. So that's definitely something to look forward to. Typically late June to mid-July, I'll see them fruiting, and then they seem to kind of go dormant until late September and October. And the ones that grow in the summer are a lot tighter, drier little nuggets, little butter sponges. But the mushrooms, the spring mushrooms, are kind of winding down, which is a little bit disappointing. But there's going to continue to be mushrooms popping up, and they can be somewhat seasonal, but they really depend on moisture. So we're kind of hoping for a rainy summer. I know most people really want hot, dry summers. Personally, I'm over it. I would rather have warm and wet summers, and then we could have mushrooms growing all throughout summer. But we'll see. This is a situation where you really have no power over this. It's all about Mother Nature and what she wants to do. But we got gypped last fall, so come on, Mother Nature, give us some rain and some cooler temperatures so these mushrooms will keep fruiting all throughout summer. So here's some mushrooms growing on a log in here. Look at that. Ooh, those are interesting. So we have a really deadly mushroom that grows off of wood here in the Northwest, known as Gallorina marginata. Look at those rhizomes. But this one is not Gallorina. This one's got a brown spore deposit, and it's hygrophanous. So see the cap, how it's lighter in the center? That's where it's drying out, and then it gets darker towards the outer edge where it's still moist. Gallorina does the opposite. It actually dries on the outer edge and stays dark in the center, and it dries from the margin inward. These ones also don't have that really distinct annulus and those silver hairs that the Gallorina marginata would have. Although some mycologists did used to put this in the genus Gallorina. It also is wound up in the genus Pholiota. This one, Kuehneromyces. So this one is actually an edible mushroom, but it looks so close to Gallorina marginata. It's one of these ones that you can eat, but just probably best to leave it alone. This is really an advanced mushroom for advanced identifiers. The Gallorina is going to have a rusty brown spore print. This one's going to have just a kind of a light brown spore print, a medium brown spore print, I guess, like Pholiota brown. It's got the same colored spores as Pholiota, growing on wood just like Pholiota. Although they are edible, and some people call them choice, I just think they look too close to the Gallorina marginata, a deadly mushroom, to even really want to mess with. So this wood-loving saprotroph, we're going to leave these behind. But it's good to familiarize yourself with these LBMs because some of them are very deadly. Sometimes people are looking for magic mushrooms and mistakenly pick deadly ones. And if you were in a survival situation and you found these, you could definitely eat them and get some nutrition out of them if you cooked them. But not for the novice or faint of heart. It's edible, but so much caution that I would say just leave them alone. Look at that, another nice little grouping of the Kuehneromyces. And these ones have like a little nipple in the center. And you can see very hygrophonous, so they're dark on the outer edge. These guys could look a lot like your Gallerana marginata, but this one right in the sunlight, you can really see the brownness of the gills. These are popping up all over right now, so it's their turn to come out. Kuehneromyces. Cool. So here's some mushrooms growing next to this log here on the side of the trail. And if you look at this one, you can see it's got this dark coloration on top of the cap. That's actually from spores that fell out of the gills of this mushroom down onto it. So it effectively left a spore print. And there's all different ages and stages of this mushroom growing right here. Candolleomyces, this one, a dark spored. It's in the Satharella, so it's a Satharella. So it has these dark purple brown spores, kind of like the genus Psilocybe. You can see they're growing in little clusters next to this log. These ones I guess are edible, but nobody really collects them to eat. This one's growing definitely right out of the wood. And so a saprobic mushroom, just living on decaying matter. It doesn't necessarily need a host tree. And, you know, purple brown spores. Let's have a look underneath this big one. This one's already letting off a lot of spores. So see that in the gills? You see that dark color? Definitely dark spores. Nice wavy gills. That's a beautiful mushroom. So Candolleomyces, not super common in my neck of the woods, but really pretty. Look at the caps of the young ones. Really kind of this caramel color. A lot of little tattered flesh on top. And then, you know, as they get older, it's got kind of a scalloped margin with a lot of little appendages hanging off the edge of the margin that would make it appendiculate. So I'm going to take some nice photos of these, and one of the Satharella type mushrooms you don't see every day around here. They are really common in other parts of the world, and again, edible, but of low culinary value from what I've heard. So still beautiful. I'm going to pick this young one right over here. Look at that. Look at that cortinal veil that's protecting those gills as the spores mature. So it's important to pick mushrooms to be able to see all the different ages, you know, all the different stages of the different ages. And so I'm just gonna pick those just so that you can see really what's going on under there. And we're gonna leave the rest of these to grow up and mature. But if anybody else is walking along the trail, then they'll be able to, you know, look at the ones that we already picked and basically left on display. Pretty little mushrooms that I don't see every day. Very cool. Ooh, kind of a neat little grouping of different mushrooms growing right here on the side of the trail. Two different types of mushrooms. Look at that one, is several mushrooms fused together. At least two that are fused into one. I love how mushrooms do that. There's another one. These ones are really woody, really tough. And these ones got kind of a metallic shimmer. These have showed up in recent videos of mine. This one in the Nolania, or you know, it's a subgenus of Entoloma. So Nolania holoconoideum. These ones really pointy. They have a pink spore print. You can kind of see the color pink on these cobwebs under here. What a mess. These ones in a genus of mushrooms, non-edible is what they would be considered. I don't really know if they're toxic or not, but everything I've ever read just says avoid eating those. And then these ones, the Cultricia perennis, or the tiger's eye. Can you see it? Kind of looks like a tiger's eye, I guess. That's the common name. I don't know. But this one's really woody. It's got little pores that it drops spores out of rather than gills or teeth. So these guys, very woody, and they come out here in the spring and they'll just hang out during the summer. They can really take the hot, dry temperatures where most other mushrooms can't. This is the very end of these Candolleania. They're going to go away until next winter. Surprised to see these ones are still out with this really warm weather. They're just shriveling and drying up. But the Cultricia, this guy's going to be around here probably for months. You know, they'll just sit there as long as someone doesn't step on it or smash it or pick it, which I have a tendency to pick them so that I can ID them. That's what you do with mushrooms, to identify them. But I'm going to leave this twofer here to grow. And yeah, kind of a cool one. Not edible. Neither of these are edible. So just leave them behind, but kind of nice. So let's keep moving. Wow, look at this big boy growing off the side of the trail, just chilling in the sunlight. Gyrometra esculenta group. So the poisonous false Morel. This one has some compounds that will metabolize into monomethylhydrazine in your belly and can make you pretty sick, hard on the nervous system. In Europe, there's reported deaths associated to these mushrooms. So it's called a false Morel by most people because it's an ascomite. So it has the same kind of feel as a Morel, but it doesn't actually have holes and pits in it. This one's made it into the last couple of videos too. Sorry to be beating a dead horse here, but we don't want your horse to die by eating these. I don't know, you probably wouldn't die, but I guess if you eat these over a long period, it can build up in your system. You know, kind of like alcohol will damage your liver over time. These can build up in your system. That hydrazine is just definitely not good for you. And even cooking these, the gases that come off of them can be quite noxious. So some people will detoxify these by boiling them twice before they saute them. Seems like a big process with a lot of risk. If you ask me, I would just avoid this mushroom. Cool to look at, and it's okay to touch, and you can even pick these. But I'm gonna leave this one growing just because it's so cool looking here in this forest. See that? Beautiful mushroom, but one that you probably want to avoid, the Gyrometra esculenta. Kind of a gray stem and this rusty colored cap. Yeah, we're gonna leave that one there. But right here, this one also makes it into a lot of videos, but it's been a minute. So let's talk about this a little bit. This one, probably the most common fungus you're gonna see in the forest of the PNW. This one, Phaematopsis mountiae. Used to be known as Phaematopsis panicola. That's the European taxon. Here in the west of the Rockies, it's called mountiae, named after a mycologist. This one, commonly called the red belted conch, because it's you know, see the red, and it's got this belt, and it's a polypore, so it's got these little tiny holes in it that actually exude spores. Oh man, this one's really fresh. Really tiny pores on this one. I can't quite zoom in tight enough to see them. I have a hand lens in my backpack, like a little jeweler's loop, and you can look close and see the little tiny pores. Kind of cool. Here's a little blobby one growing off the end of this log. So this one is a brown rot decayer. They eat the conifer logs here. If they didn't eat these logs, we would just have pickup sticks of logs all the way sky high. These are really important for the ecology of the forest. They break down this wood, turn it back into usable soil. So it eats all of the white cellulose out of the wood, and it leaves behind the brown stuff. Look at how it's kind of like in cubical little stacks. See that? There's no more cellulose. It's just the brown part, the lignin, left behind. So this is an old log that had been thoroughly eaten by a brown rot decayer, just like this Phaematopsis, and likely the exact same fungus that we're looking at over here. This one's just starting to eat this log, fairly fresh log. So really important to forest ecology around here. Not a lot of human uses, although some people claim that they have medicinal benefits. I'm not going to sit here and tell you if they do or they don't. I'll leave that up to you. but very important for the forest. Here's another example. All the white stuff is gone. The fungus just ran through the log, ate all that white stuff out of it, and this one's essentially like dirt, pretty much. You know, a seed could fall and grow in this now and start the cycle all over. So really important mushrooms here, and really, really, really common. Phomitopsis mounsii, inedible, hard as a piece of wood, but really, really important to the forest. And yet another log with more Pleurotus. So oyster mushrooms fruiting off of this old big leaf maple. You see that white frosty look, that's all spores like landed in this cobweb. So beautiful oysters. They're just everywhere this time of year, but because of this little heat wave we're having, they're drying out pretty quickly. But no doubt these have a lot of larvae in them. I can see worms climbing in the gills right now. And so if you're not squeamish, really good to eat, but I find these things just get riddled with worms really, really fast. So it's up to you. But look at all those spores. You could just scrape some of those up with a Q-tip and just touch it on some agar and grow yourself this exact species of Pleurotus. Beautiful. So I am now in the exact same spot that I came to last year and found just hundreds of these blonde morels growing out here and not a single one. So it just goes to show, you know, sometimes if you want to leave some behind, go ahead, but there's no guarantee that they're going to come back. So, you know, the way I pick and the way I was taught to pick is, you know, if you're picking good edibles and they're mature, pick them all, you know. Undoubtedly, in this rough foliage, I missed lots of them. Not to mention, they were huge, and a lot of them were pretty old and had dropped just millions of spores out here. And the mycelium was just crawling everywhere through all this leaf duff. And I don't see a single mushroom growing here this year. So, you know, this patch right here is proof to me that at least that species of Morchella, I think they were Morchella tridentina, are not mycorrhizal, because these are all big leaf maples. They do not support mycorrhizal mushroom growth. So these were growing saprotrophically. They fruited all through here massively last year, and this year not a single one. So I'm glad I got them while the getting was good, because I've been checking on this spot like on a weekly basis since early April and haven't seen so much as one, not even one. I love to find stuff like this out with my own two eyes, you know what I mean? I hear a lot of rumors, but it's like the cauliflower mushroom. I've returned to the same spot so many times to try to see if it came back the next year. My experience is that I've never seen it happen, but other people say it does happen, so I'll keep trying, you know. But same as these morels, people are like, oh, you found an awesome patch of morels, go back there every year. Not true. So there you go, the more you know. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Mushroom Wonderland. Hope you got value out of that. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and check out Mushroom Wonderland on all the other platforms. Each platform has different kind of content on it, so the links are all in the description. Make sure to do that, and we'll see you on the next episode. Much love, everybody. Peace out. Come on, boy.